By this time, 12-year-old Keanu had found his first serious hobby. In keeping with stereotypes about Canada, where they were now living, the boy had fallen in love with hockey. He dreamt of becoming a professional player, and what started as a hobby quickly became a passion. Keanu's grades began to drop. Things weren't going well at school. His family moved around a lot, which meant he was always the new kid. At age 13, Keanu added acting to his extracurricular activities. He owed this new interest to his former stepfather, Paul Aaron, who still stayed in touch with the family and often invited the teenager to Los Angeles. There, he would take Keanu to the sets of movies like A Different Story, The Miracle Worker, and A Force of One.
A force of one. He hears the silence. He sees the darkness.
Sure, he was having a hard time at school, but at the same time, Keanu was the most valuable player on his hockey team. His first job was also related to hockey. Keanu stayed after practice at the stadium and sharpened the skates for all the other players. When he turned 16, he got a job at the Pastissimo restaurant making over 100 pounds of pasta a day. Reeves switched schools dozens of times, dropped out of several theater studios, and learned what he thought was the technique of method acting. Successful auditions became his first real achievements. The production of Wolf Boy can safely be considered Keanu's debut. This insanely bizarre homoerotic play made quite a splash in Toronto's gay community. According to the plot, an innocent boy ends up in a psychiatric hospital and falls in love with his roommate who thinks he's a wolf. Sure, it's no Macbeth, but everyone knew what they were getting into. Director John Palmer recalled it this way: "One of the most gorgeous kids anyone's ever seen in white shorts. And we oiled them. What do you want for $10? The promotional photo shoot for the play became no less popular than the production itself. These photos are all the remains of the extravagant start of Keanu's career. But the play gave him a chance to get on TV in 1984. He debuted in small roles in series like Hangin' In,
Hey, where do you keep the towels? Pete said we could use a shower.
Night Heat,
Hang in there, kid. Please.
and Comedy Factor. These short scenes, usually consisting of just one line, paved the way for Keanu to appear in commercials for Coca-Cola.
Great race. Who's your coach?
My dad.
And Kellogg's Corn Flakes, which he received his first serious paychecks. I used to live my life out of a basket. I had this killer Kellogg's commercial once, made tons of money, and I cashed the check and put all of the cash in a basket. The actor's 19th birthday marked a turning point.
Right, go ahead. Way to go!
Nickelodeon's Going Great, hosted by Keanu, was a great fit for him. But the show about amazing and talented kids received the channel's worst ever ratings, and it was promptly canceled.
Guess it's back to my training.
The silver lining was that Keanu became acquainted with director Steven Stern, who noticed the young man's talent and gave him the script for a film called Young Again, and tells him to get ready for auditions. When Stern returned to Los Angeles, he met with Disney executives Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg. The idea of bringing in an unknown actor to play the leading role was not well received. The director then personally paid for Keanu's plane ticket and brought him to the Disney offices for an audition. The callback never came. The young man who had come to conquer Hollywood didn't wait for an answer and went home.
I hope something gets out there that is magic. And if not, I'll just be sad and cry.
The next sign from above was an audition that Keanu heard about in both his acting and hockey communities. The sport drama, Youngblood, featuring rising stars Patrick Swayze and Rob Lowe. This was the perfect opportunity to make a name for himself on the big screen. He landed the role 2 weeks before his 20th birthday. It was the greatest birthday gift ever, a combination of two of his favorite things to do.
She do it to me last year, eh?
She do it to me last night, huh?
While it was just a small supporting role, nothing more than background appearances and a couple of standard lines, it paved Keanu's way to the world of movies.
That man is fucking an animal.
One of Youngblood's hallmarks is its intense scenes on the ice. In addition to his own shots, Keanu often played the backs of Swayze and Lowe, dragging the cameraman behind him in a wheelchair. Critics praised the film's crew's impressive work, and although no one mentioned Reeves, he didn't mind because he immediately landed another role in a feature film.
I'm sick of playing this game. I'm not playing it anymore. From now on, I'm a free agent. Look out, girls.
In the sports drama Flying, Keanu took on a leading role for the first time in his career as the film's heartthrob. Flying was the next step on the road to fame, but now it was time to take the elevator. In late 1994, Steven Stern finally convinced Disney executives to approve Reeves. The filming of Young Again would be taking place in Los Angeles, and Keanu saw this as an excellent reason to finally leave his parents' house and chase his dreams. I was tired of playing the best friend, thug number one, and the tall guy. There was no room for me as an actor in Canada. So I get in the car, pick up my girlfriend, and we drive off for Hollywood. Hey, do you like our work? Let us know with your like and comment. Push that subscribe button and share with your friends. If you want to support the project financially, become our sponsor on Patreon or YouTube sponsorship. Thank you. Let's move on. Paul Aaron didn't just take the young man into his home. He introduced him to his future agent and manager. The movie mecca of the world greeted Keanu with open arms, at least in part because he already had what half of this town spends years searching for.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Young Again didn't do well, but Reeves' performance is praised by several critics.
She looks familiar. I feel like I've seen her before.
You see? I told you he was normal.
The plot tells of a successful but unhappy businessman who dreams of being young again and finally gets the opportunity.
Look at me. I'm a kid. I'm a kid.
Keanu made an impression on all of the casting managers in Hollywood with his on-screen embodiment of the joys of youth. The actor was invited to all sorts of comedy and soap opera auditions, but he longed for a serious project. It's hard to imagine what his agent must have felt when Reeves turned down Oliver Stone himself. The director wanted him to play the leading role in Platoon. Stone later recalled that the actor's decision had been based on his own pacifism and a reluctance to act in a movie about weapons. The film went on to win 4 Oscars, and Keanu's replacement, Charlie Sheen, was nominated for Best Actor. Not surprisingly, after rejecting such a successful project, the big-time offers stopped coming in to Reeves' agent, leaving Keanu to act in several fairly forgettable projects. Among them were the dramas Under the Influence, for which he received positive critical acclaim.
Couldn't, Ed. He was sick.
Yeah, and now he's dead. And he wouldn't be if I just...
Eddie, come on.
Get out of
Give
here!
me the gun. Give me the gun.
And River's Edge, long considered to be his best role.
So now we get married, right?
No. Let's get stoned instead.
Oh, that'd be great.
This was followed by the thriller The Brotherhood of Justice
Brotherhood in silence. Brotherhood in silence.
and the crime drama Act of Vengeance. The director of Act of Vengeance, John Mackenzie, became the first person, but not the last, to openly disparage Keanu's work. In one interview, he complained about the actor's awkward clumsiness on camera and called him an upstart. Most of all, the director was angered by Keanu's defiant behavior off-screen.
Shows I was meant for something special.
Despite the criticism, Keanu continued to churn out films at an incredible rate. He featured in 8 different projects in 1986 alone, the last of which was the musical Babes in Toyland, where he starred alongside Drew Barrymore.
Toymaster, we've got to talk to you.
Really, sir, for the sake of Toyland.
Well, yes, I'm listening.
But this film also flopped. Given that it was shot in Munich in just 33 days, director Clive Donner simply didn't have the time to adapt Victor Herbert's operetta. But fans got to hear Keanu sing for the first time.
I come from
C-I-N-C-I-N-N-A-T, Cincinnati, the best town in Ohio, USA.
The busy year allowed the actor to move out of his stepfather's place and swap out his ancient Volvo for a motorcycle. But he didn't let the money go to his head. Keanu wasn't drawn to the nightlife of Los Angeles. He preferred long motorcycle rides at night and trips to bookstores, where he bought almost everything on the shelves. Meanwhile, Keanu's image for roles as an attractive teenager became even stronger, despite the fact that he was already 23. This image won him parts in films such as Permanent Record.
But, could you allow me to be honest with you?
No, because you're going to start complaining about doing this particular show, and that's not up for discussion, Chris.
The Night Before.
Are we going to talk, or are we going to rock?
Oh, man.
White guy.
And The Prince of Pennsylvania. Keanu began to dread being typecast after portraying 10 different teenagers on screen. To make matters worse, his 24th birthday was fast approaching, and it was starting to show in his appearance. Reeves saw the opportunity to act in a costumed historical production of Dangerous Liaisons as his chance to break free of the eternal schoolboy image and finally be taken seriously as an actor.
Oh, it's sublime, don't you find?
Plus, his fellow co-stars were of a completely different caliber than anyone he had worked with previously. Actors like John Malkovich, Michelle Pfeiffer, and newcomer Uma Thurman. Despite the fact that many consider the idea of casting a teen icon in a serious drama to be a risky gamble, director Stephen Frears completely trusted Keanu.
I don't know how I can ever repay you.
Upon the film's release, Reeves was considered one of the main problems, a weak link and an out-of-place experiment.
Somehow, quite a different tone of voice.
Rumors surfaced about how Frears had wasted hours on set trying to get Keanu to cry for a scene. Despite the criticism, Keanu was proud of the challenges he overcame and referred to this role as a turning point in his career. Dangerous Liaisons did, in fact, allow him to stop playing schoolboys. By the way, it was after his audition for the film that Keanu got into one of his most famous accidents.
The one that I think that you're talking about is a,
Well, pick your favorite injury.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you...
The years that followed Keanu's move to Los Angeles were marked by a passion that grew into an obsession. He began to collect motorcycles, and while simply riding them is extreme enough in itself, Keanu truly threw caution to the wind. One of his favorite ways to have fun was to take off his helmet, turn off his headlights, and ride around the Hollywood Hills all night.
So I'm sorry, I was on a motorcycle, I was in Topanga Canyon, I was going really fast, didn't know the road, and there was a hairpin turn. I hit the mountain, I had trauma, a couple of broken ribs, etc., and went to the hospital, and they took the blood out and then sewed up my spleen.
He also ended up with a scar from his sternum to his navel. And no, the actor didn't learn his lesson. He continued to risk his life and get into accidents. We'll come back to this point several times.
Well, I've had some cool crashes. I have. I mean, they're cool because I'm here, not there. You know what I mean?
The following year, Keanu got into, no, not an accident, the cast of Parenthood, a comedy with Diane West and Steve Martin in the lead roles.
Sweet Jesus! What are you doing? Are you joining the Marines?
Even in those days, director Ron Howard was no slouch in Hollywood, albeit not as iconic as he is today, which meant that working under him was both a challenge and an excellent opportunity for Keanu to express himself in a major project.
Well,
Parenthood became a hit at the box office and was nominated for 2 Oscars.
I need to see.
No, not in...
It wasn't a huge merit for Keanu, but not receiving negative criticism was enough to earn him some credibility among his colleagues.
God. Thanks.
Ron Howard advised director Lawrence Kasdan to cast Keanu in his black comedy I Love You to Death, where he played a memorable role and made a friend.
So it's generally not considered a very good idea to take a taxi to the scene of a crime.
Hey, man, look. Be cool, okay?
Reeves and River Phoenix became instant buddies, and would star together again a year later, but we'll come back to that. Taking on the character of a drug-addicted criminal became one of the most extraordinary experiences of the actor's career. Every scene he appears in is both memorable and shocking. In just a year, Reeves managed to dramatically change his attitude towards himself, revealing his talent in a completely different way. All the more surprising was the release of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Bill S. Preston, Esquire. And Ted Theodore Logan.
Don't think that Keanu had decided to go back to his teenage roles or that this was the offer of a lifetime. It was all much simpler than that. You see, Bill and Ted had been filmed back in 1987, but due to the De Laurentiis Entertainment Group going bankrupt, the movie was abandoned and being prepared for TV release. However, Nelson Entertainment bought the rights to the film a year later and released it in theaters in 1989.
Excellent!
To say that this was a good idea is like saying that the computer was a decent invention.
No way. No way.
Yes way, Ted!
The $10 million project brought in $40 million at the US box office, and at least half as much internationally. Roughly the same amount as the combined sales of home videos and all sorts of related merchandise. Not to mention an animated series.
Excellent! Bogus!
And a sequel. The film's release launched the first wave of widespread fame for Keanu Reeves. But he almost didn't play Ted.
Hello, San Dimas High!
The only reason he was cast was because the auditions of River Phoenix, Sean Penn, and Brendan Fraser were unsuccessful.
They do get better.
Sure, the modern viewer may find the movie to be a bit silly, but in the late 80s, nearly every publication wrote an article about the brilliant comedic talent of Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter in their caricature of youth of that time.
It's you.
Yeah, it's us. Who are we?
What more can be said other than this is a classic of American comedy? Keanu has stated that it was the role of his life, joking that his tombstone would one day read, "Here lies Keanu Reeves. He played Ted." Anyway, after the success of Bill and Ted, another project that Keanu had starred in a few years before his breakthrough finally hit the screens. Delayed for the same reason as Bill and Ted, Tune In Tomorrow was the first comedy of his career featuring him in the spotlight.
Oh, right. So who says romance is dead?
But this movie was doomed to remain in the shadow of his recent comedic success, just like the romantic comedy Life Underwater, released in 1989.
Hey, come on, wake up. Are you all right? Oh, Jesus, you must have had a night.
Featuring Sarah Jessica Parker as Reeves' lover, this television version of a popular American play skipped the theaters and went straight to TV.
She'll like you when she gets to know you.
That will never happen.
You really will, though. I'm very nice. I'm harmless.
Critics agreed that they would have preferred to see the pair on stage, deeming the TV movie mediocre and pointless.
Thank you.
And so, by the age of 25, Keanu had more than 20 projects under his belt. He was a rising star who had proven himself in many roles and showed no signs of stopping. The next challenge was to transform into an action hero, reuniting with Patrick Swayze, only this time in the lead role. Keanu set to work on Catherine Bigelow's Point Break, which she co-wrote with her ex-husband, James Cameron. After beating out Charlie Sheen and Johnny Depp at the auditions, Keanu, along with Patrick Swayze and Lori Petty, began preparations for filming, although this time, it looked like what normal people would call vacation. The actors flew out to Hawaii, where they spent 2 months learning to surf. While Swayze had already tried his hand at catching waves a couple of times before, it was all Reeves could do to just stay up on the board. As for Petty, it was her first time seeing the ocean.
I've never seen the ocean before. Any ocean. I never thought it would affect me so much.
An exhausting 77 days of filming followed, during which Keanu discovered a new world of gunfights, chases, and brawls that would become an integral part of his career in the future.
Life sure has a sick sense of humor, doesn't it?
Interestingly, this scene was actually filmed during the day and subsequently blacked out in post-production due to the high costs of filming at night.
You don't need to see.
Yeah, right. Vision is highly overrated.
And the scene where Keanu jumps from a plane was even featured in an episode of Mythbusters.
Fuck yeah!
They rejected the possibility of a 90-second freefall.
You are crazy! Pull the fucking show! Why don't you pull it?
But still agreed that Johnny Utah could have had time to grab Bodie when he jumped out of the plane without a parachute.
Yeah, we jumped out. 15 seconds later, he jumped, and right as we pulled our chute, he was like right next.
The only way it's gonna happen, my friend. Do it! I swear to God, I will! Do it, man!
The film was an instant hit in theaters, and despite cool reactions from critics, it earned about $100 million at the box office. It's no secret that 2015 saw a remake of the movie that didn't live up to its predecessor.
They only live to get radical. They don't have any real understanding of the sea, so they'll never get the spiritual side of it.
But there is one film that surpassed the original in terms of ticket sales and fame. That film is The Fast and the Furious.
This is one of those times when you need to be very clear about what you say.
The creators have never admitted to it, but it's hard to deny the incredible similarities between these two movies, where one simply replaces surfing with racing.
Respect for my elders. Plain and simple.
Keanu, having transformed from a good-looking pretty boy into a young macho man, set out to explore new facets of his talent. This time, it was to work with Gus Van Sant on the adventure drama, My Own Private Idaho.
You ready for a new day?
Van Sant had been dreaming of making this movie for several years. Named after a song by the B-52s, this script follows the lives of street hustler Mikey Waters and a wealthy young man named Scott Favor. Given the specific and rather provocative material, Gus was convinced that the only way to make the film was to cast unknown up-and-coming actors in the lead roles and invest his own money. But he really wanted to cast River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, well, that's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredibly obvious.
Even though he knew that their agents would most likely not let them read the script, he still sent it anyway. One never made it to River. Keanu, however, received it and loved the script from its very first pages. Reeves then hopped on his motorcycle and rode across the country to River's home in Florida, hoping to personally persuade the actor to co-star in the film. Needless to say, it worked. Keanu convinced River to join the project, resulting in one of the most important films in the careers of both actors. During filming, the ensemble cast moved into Gus Van Sant's home, where the group partied every night until dawn, including music, alcohol, and drugs. The situation was a bit out of control, so the director moved out just to get some sleep once in a while.
What, you think I sell your body while you're asleep?
The star of the film was undoubtedly River Phoenix, whose skills and talent were on full display anytime the camera was rolling.
I've been on this road before. This is my road.
But with Keanu playing his first role as an anti-hero, it wouldn't have been possible.
It will impress them more when such a fuck-up like me turns good.
The actors both later agreed that they simply couldn't imagine doing even half the provocative scenes with anyone else on Earth. We made a kind of brother pact. It could have been like a bad dream, a dream that never follows through because no one commits, but we forced ourselves into it. We said, okay, I'll do it if you do it. I won't do it if you don't. We shook hands. That was it. We're so immersed in their work that River personally rewrote this scene and convinced the director to shoot his version.
I really want to kiss you, man. Good night, man.
Of course, besides its sexual subject matter, My Own Private Idaho also touches on the topic of drugs. His role in the film caused Keanu to admit that he had tried hashish and LSD in grade school, and had regularly, though not often, used drugs since moving to Hollywood. These revelations came as a result of psychotropic substances being as commonplace on set as coffee. Even though Keanu claimed that he easily quit after filming, witnesses said that he was often high during his subsequent work on the sequel to Bill and Ted. The experience was even more harmful to River Phoenix. Unable to overcome the drug addiction he had acquired on the set of My Own Private Idaho, 3 years later, on October 31st, 1993, River died from an overdose of heroin and cocaine. He had been on a 2-day bender with members of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and passed away in front of his younger brother Joaquin.
Yeah.